Making way for our next panel discussion, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you a man who is considered the vanguard of tech journalism. Mike Butcher will be moderating this discussion today. He's considered one of the most influential people in tech and well known for his editorial leadership of TechCrunch. Besides being the editor at large at TechCrunch, he's been at the helm of various startup initiatives, from the Europa Awards to Tech Vets and Tech Fugees. He will be moderating our discussion and joined by Sharif Al-Badawi, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the newly established Dubai Future District Fund, an evergreen venture fund of funds, and the direct investment vehicle of the Emirate of Dubai. And last but by no means the least, we have Ertan Khan, the founder and managing partner of Multiple Capital. Welcome to the stage, gentlemen.
Good. Thanks for joining us. And we have a great conversation here today because what's fun about this one, I think, is that we're going to be talking about funding in the region and how VCs and funds of funds operate as well. Let me introduce these guys. They should be behind me, but let me introduce them anyway. We've got Sharif Al-Badawi over here. CEO of Dubai Future District Funds. Welcome, sir. And then we've got Ertan Khan, founder and managing director of Multiple Capital. Now, Sharif, you're the chief executive of this Dubai Future District Fund, but you also worked at 500 startups as a partner, and you've been in VC and startups for a long time. Eric, you've been obviously founder of Multiple Capital. You've been a VC, you've been an investor, but your primary focus is a fund of funds, a fund of micro funds, and you're building a portfolio of over 500 companies. Now, is that 500 funds you're investing into, or 500 companies you're investing into?
I think. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think there is no one investing in 500 funds in the world.
No.
So there's no one
so
really.
It's companies.
Not a single group that is investing in 500. Not even the big public investors like the EIF.
What about 500 startups?
So 500 startups is investing in 500 startups over several generations,
Probably.
in my opinion.
Over
right?
2,500.
Yeah. So what we do is we screen a lot of funds, but ending up investing in roughly 40 to 50 funds. And with those 40 funds, we build a portfolio of 1,000 startups. It's like an ultra diversified way to invest in venture capital, very, very early stage. We truly believe that venture is a power law game. So you need the kind of outliers in venture, which is very difficult to get early stage. And we just increase the probability of having those outliers in our portfolio.
Hold
by
it
having
closer to your mouth.
Sorry, yeah. Oh, now I can hear my. So we just increase the probability of having those kind of outliers when we have 1,000 startups in our portfolio.
And the LPs in your fund, who are they generally?
So today they are high net worth individuals and family offices mainly.
Right.
We're still, I would say, too small for institutional investors, but the idea of Multiple was always to what we call like bring those potential investors the ability to invest in this kind of large portfolio. There is no ETF, there is no listed product that you can choose and invest and have like 1,000 startups in your portfolio. There's no way. You, Mike, you're fully connected to everyone. You couldn't invest in 1,000 startups.
Oh, right? I think I probably could, to be honest with you.
Yeah, maybe you could, yeah.
Let's come back to that in a minute. But Sharif, obviously you're doing Dubai Future District Funds. Now it's quite an early fund, isn't it? It hasn't been around for very long. 1 year, right? So it's still you're still in baby steps. As far as I can tell, you've invested in only 3 startups, or how many?
We've already invested in 8 startups and
8.
5 funds.
Okay, so you're investing in funds as well as startups?
Yes.
Okay, so you're an LP as well as a VC?
Yes.
Right. What's the strategy then for this Dubai Future District Fund? What is the strategy?
The impetus for the fund was to add capital to the ecosystem in 2 ways. One is to support the VCs who are doing the great work that they're doing.
Yeah.
We didn't see that there was a capital availability at that level very consistently in the region. And most of the regional funds cannot just go raise from outside the region. So the governments have, most of the countries now have set up fund of funds for this purpose. But Dubai really hadn't, even though it was a leading sort of a city for the ecosystem in terms of number of deals, amount of funding. It didn't put up capital as a platform before. So finally that's come now.
So this is brand new.
Brand new,
Right.
and they've been working on it for a while. But we invest 50% of our capital to support the VCs in the private market because we're a government fund. We're not meant to cannibalize the efforts of the private market, but to support them. And then there are certain instances where, as you know, like these emerging markets don't have a lot of deep tech. They see a lot of business model cloning. So we have our direct tickets as well to co-invest with our GPs, but also to invest where there are gaps in the market. And our hope is to kind of push the envelope on those deeper technologies here in the region.
I see. So I noticed a couple of your investments so far. You've done Zaiwa, which is a neobank for teenagers.
Exactly, yes.
That's obviously fintech, not deep tech.
Yes.
You've got you invested in Cotu Ventures, COTU rather than not
correct.
the other one.
Right.
And who are they? Who's COTU?
Cotu is led by a GP named Amir Farha. He used to be
Yeah.
at Beko Capital, and it stands for Champion of the Underdogs, and he invests in pre-seed.
Right. And you also invested in FinFlix,
Yes.
flexible pension plans for SMEs.
Correct.
So
yes.
more fintech. So you're still looking for the deep tech stuff. That sounds to me.
HR tech, I would say, for that one.
Oh,
We've
that's
also
HR.
invested in 360 Views, which is a more metaverse video content kind of play, creator economy type of thing. But you're right. I mean, it's not as deep, and we're going to stage that over time because we realize like that requires a lot of dry powder. It requires other investors in the market to also participate, which we don't have a lot of. And it requires a foundation for R&D, for higher capex deals, for longer, cycles of return, and the market needs to build up to that slowly.
So let's talk about let's just like explode the subjects a little bit. Let's talk about like trends in the region. Ertan, I know that you're based out of Germany, but you have a Turkish heritage. You're investing in the Middle East. What are some of the interesting things that you've seen recently, post-pandemic? Shift to digitization. What was some of the most interesting things you're excited about at the moment?
So I'm not investing in the region.
You're not investing in the region?
I'm not investing in the
You're
region.
investing in where? More Europe?
I invest mainly in the European market.
Right, okay, sorry.
And the US market. So we are like
Okay.
2/3 Europe and 1/3
So you're
US.
doing the normal European investing stuff, looking for VCs who are investing in fintech, deep tech, all that kind of
So
stuff.
we have two strategies. One is we invest in local generalists. Means you are in UK and you invest in UK at seed stage as a generalist seed fund.
Yeah.
That is, and we do that at the same time, in Baltics, in Finland, in Germany, etc., etc. We try to cover regions by generalists.
Yeah.
The other focus is vertically focused funds, topic focused funds. So a blockchain fund investing across a wider region, and that's then a pan-European, blockchain or
And
life science
that's global,
or
isn't
deep
it?
tech fund. Say again?
Anything blockchain is global now. This
Yeah, I would say you're right. But
it's not really regional in the same way as Web 2 is.
Yeah, I agree. On blockchain, I agree.
Yeah.
For most of the other stuff like deep tech, life science, it's not.
Are you a
global.
sole GP?
I'm a solo GP.
Sole
yeah.
GP fund of funds guy, right?
And we do invest also mostly in solo GPs ourselves because those are the micro VCs, right? So.
Are you seeing any VC solo? Are you investing in any VCs that spin out of their funds to become solo GP funds?
So there are typically three type of solo GPs.
Yeah.
One is what you mentioned, like spinning out of a larger fund and saying, I'm the blockchain guy in a larger generalist fund, and I will set up my own blockchain fund, right? So the second is an operational person, so someone who worked or built a startup and then says, okay, I'm a deep tech guy because I've built deep tech products, and now I'm going to invest into other deep tech founders. And the third is are angels who are, I call them super angels, angels who invested in the last 5 years, let's say in 50 to 100 companies, and just build that investment thesis and then raise their first institutional fund, which is still a micro VC as a solo GP.
So you chuck them some money if they go and do a VC fund. If you're not investing in this region, why are you here?
It's a very good question.
Maybe raising money.
So one thing is definitely raising. So we're raising our next funds.
So you're
and
running around looking for all the high net worths.
We just
and the
realized
family offices.
we just realized it's much more difficult than we realized or thought, raising capital in the region. The other thing is we consider ourselves more and more a global fund. Again, about 1/3 of our portfolio is our US funds. A portion of that US funds are investing outside of the US. For example,
Yeah.
we have an Africa-based fund. It's a US structure, but they invest in Francophile Africa. So we are more open to invest outside of our core region. We think that 1/3 of our next fund investments will be in areas like Africa, Northern Africa, Southeast Asia, and LATAM. So I
Right.
think it's just natural developments that we are not just being based in Europe. We're not investing only in Europe.
Right.
That's the idea.
So you're just contradicting what you said earlier.
What was it, or what?
What you said earlier is that you're not investing in the region, but now you are.
So I
Maybe
have
it's
not.
when you get the money.
I have
We're
not
gonna make him
invested.
invest in the region.
When he gets the money, I suppose.
it's a
My
simple
hotel is
answer.
full of VCs looking for LPs. So if anyone's hiring any family offices who want to invest in VCs, come to the 25 Hours Hotel. You throw a stone and you'll hit a VC. Now, Sheriff, you are investing in the region. So, but what are you
Exclusively.
looking? What are you looking for?
So
I mean,
we invest in three kinds of funds. Incumbent VCs who've been doing the work for the last decade here to support them, to continue doing that. They're on their second fund, third fund, fourth fund.
Yeah.
We also invest in new and emerging fund managers like Amir Farhad Kotu, who spun out of a VC. And we invest in international funds who are going to start investing here. So about 30% of the VCs investing in MENA are from outside. So we want to encourage more of that.
Well, I mean, from your perspective, like, so I've been covering the Middle East as well as part of my gig at TechCrunch for many years, and what I saw was sort of originally was like e-commerce plays, and then gradually you got sort of like the clones, like the Careems copying Uber, and food delivery, and etc. All due respect to Careem, and then you got. And now you are getting like neobanks, and that's an unusual one. So you're getting a new wave of startups coming in. Where do you think that's going to be hottest? Any particular place, or is just broadly across MENA?
I mean, fintech has the lion's share of investments and interest over the last few years, like in the rest of the world, and we see that here.
There's open banking platform standards
we
now?
We have three first layer open banking. We have maybe 10 of the second layer CAS systems that are doing credit cards and expense management as an open platform. But I mean, we invest across two thematic pillars. The first one we call Future of Finance, which includes all the fintech, regtech, legal tech, and future economies, which is less about what sectors, but it could be healthcare, it could be edtech, logistics, things like that, where we see them pushing the envelope on how technology will change between now and 2050. So future of work is all software B2B. We can do that today. If it's genomic sequencing or skin grafting, which we'd love to do but doesn't exist, we're going to start pushing the envelope to that direction soon. So not a doctor booking app, because that's kind of yesterday, but something that's a little bit more envelope pushing on the tech side.
Right,
so we don't do commerce, we don't do regular on-demand, we don't do last mile delivery, all the stuff you see ho-hum every day. We are avoiding all of that because the funds we invest in are agnostic, so they do that anyway. So we won't do that with our direct tickets as a government. It doesn't make sense.
Right, I see. But I mean, how low can you? Doesn't it doing that sort of that deep tech stuff? Doesn't that mean that you have to be closer to things like universities and that kind of ecosystem?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the foundational elements that we still need to develop here.
Yeah.
We have a few, very little R&D, or even the mindset or culture of R&D to let something be studied for 10 years and to fund it. We don't have grant systems like in the US or Europe that fund R&D and science. So we need to work on all of those things, and those are peripheral initiatives to the fund. Our job is just to do the investing, but many of our sister organizations in Dubai and the UAE are working on these types of things. Like, for example, Minister Olama has the AI Future Lab in Emirates Towers, and they're working on cybersecurity, on robotics, on AI, and the hope is to expand that kind of lab to be a much larger lab, almost like a ghost kitchen for R&D. And with what's happening around the world, a lot of scientists are now moving to Dubai and now looking for a place to do their research. So it's feeding into the same direction.
It's fascinating, isn't it, to think, I think just before the pandemic, a lot of people said Dubai was basically going downhill, crashing and burning, and then basically it opened up during the pandemic, and everyone went, oh, let's just go there. So
It became the best place to be.
incredible story of revival to some extent. Ertan, you obviously look across the board. You look at VCs. Do you think there's a new generation of VCs coming through that are looking at things differently, or is it more of the same? And how do you think, what's happened since the pandemic to change people's strategy, or has it remained the same?
I think one thing that changed during the pandemic is that people are more open to invest in other regions. So,
Yeah.
like, you know, you don't have to, like, there is no expectation to meet people in a physical meeting anymore. They are used on Zoom and Google Meet, and we, for example, did, I think, 15 commitments in our last during pandemic, and most of them we had never met in person. So that's one of the biggest change. But on other things, I think there is again, in the European ecosystem, for example, there is a stronger move for solo GPs, which was almost impossible 2-3 years ago. Like, most of the people who wanted to raise a solo GP fund couldn't raise a solo GP fund because European LPs just expected, okay, hey, you need a second partner, you need a third partner, otherwise we couldn't back you. And this kind of mindset changes in the European ecosystem, and I think globally, and it is also driven by US investors, again. Right, so US investors are more used to back solo GPs in the US, and now they are backing solo GPs in Europe and in other regions as well. And other LPs just follow. They just realize, okay, it's not that risky, seems not to be that risky to invest in a solo GP.
Do you think that, I mean, I've seen solo GPs starting to appear in Europe. Do you think that's going to happen in the Middle East?
It will be a natural process, but
It's definitely happening already. I mean, we've invested in 3 in just the last year, 3 solo GPs.
Right.
And we want to continue to support that because it provides optionality for founders, plurality of the types of investments and theses. And the international VCs are starting to look here a lot more than, you know, in the early days when you were here. We have, I think, about half of the top tier VCs have done at least one investment in MENA, which did not exist pre-COVID. So it's really awesome to see that happening.
Fantastic. Who here wants to be a VC? Anyone? Stick your hand up? No? Nobody? No, okay. Well, these guys are the guys to talk to if you want to do that. Finally, Ertan, what's your view about, you speaking to LPs a lot all the time, where do they want to put their money now? Do they want to put that, because we're going to have a global recession, there's war in Ukraine, there's fuck Putin, by the way, just putting that on the record. What else? What else have we got? We got energy crisis, etc. Where do these high net worths or these family offices want to put their money now? Do they want to risk it in venture anymore, or do they see the returns coming through?
So definitely one trend is that a lot of people have paused their investments. So they are delaying their investments currently. And we just think it's the wrong thing. It's one of the best vintages. Always when, like, it's a natural, like, historically, those vintages when people leave the market are the best times to invest. You know, if everyone thinks, oh, now we should stop, that means there's less capital, less competition, prices are lower, and you probably have better access to the right companies. And that's like the reality.
I
But
see. So
currently,
it's actually
most
a
of
good
the
time.
people, in my opinion.
Go ahead.
I absolutely agree, but unfortunately I feel like VCs in the startup ecosystem speak in an echo chamber. We all keep saying this is the best time to invest, but the capital allocators above us may not think so. They may be worried about all these different asset classes or how it's going to play out. But if you're disciplined as a VC, and I mean, it's good for founders too. It's not always great to have these pumped valuations ahead of your traction. So I think it's also great for founders. And the best founders who have a line of sight to cash flow positivity can build during this time without this noise. And last couple of years was just crazy. Even out here, the signal to noise ratio was really messed up, and pricing was all over the place. And it's going to catch up to them. Those are like they have the VC IV on, and they have no line of sight to cash flow positivity. Yeah. The moment the music stops, they're going to crash.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of VCs who have dry powder right now are reserving that dry powder to save their portfolio companies who are burning too much, which is not going to allow them to invest in the new startups who are coming up. So it's a great time to invest, but there's a lot of nuance to it.
The valuation, let's be honest, the valuations have gone down, but then a lot of dross has left the market, so it's a little bit easier to find out
definitely.
genuine businesses as opposed to crazy ones. So it would appear that it absolutely is a decent time. Well, this has been a pretty big event, isn't it? Still going very well. But I think we've only got a couple seconds left. But any final thoughts? Any parting shots, Ertan?
No, I'm just impressed about the conference here, to be honest. I was 2 months ago at Collision in Toronto, and I just don't see a big difference. So it's really impressive what Dubai or what GITEX, the conference, has set up here.
Yeah, and what's your plan for next year?
I mean, to continue to grow our portfolio, that's our number one focus, is deploying capital. So into funds that have a presence and investments here in the region, and into startups, of course, that are doing new and interesting things. We really want to hear from them and support them. We're building a number of other initiatives that will launch next year on the platform. For example, allowing qualified retail investors to invest individually into the venture fund of Dubai.
Right.
It's meant to be a public fund, and so we will have a number of initiatives that will launch after that. We also are trying to provide insights to the ecosystem. Like if I asked you, how is MENA Venture Capital performing?
Yeah.
None of us have a clue, even though we've been doing it for 5-10 years. So we're going to anonymize the data, of course, but we're going to publish benchmarks based on NVCA and ILPA valuation
that'd be cool.
policies. So we know actually how MENA is really performing. Things
Right.
like that. I
Yeah.
think it's our role now to play.
More data would be useful, I think. Yeah, brilliant. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Please, round of applause for Sharif from Dubai Future District Fund and Ertan from Multiple Capital.
Thank you.
And
Thanks,
for
Mike.
me, Mike Butcher from TechCrunch, I shall see you at the conference. Cheers.